I'm B.
And I'm B. And this is Homestead Happenings,
where every week we bring you along on our journey to self-sufficiency.
And bring you exclusive interviews on all things homestead from people around the world.
So hit subscribe and follow along with us.
Let's learn, let's grow, let's go.
I'm V.
And I'm B.
And today we are going to be talking about homesteading as a young family. So many people are getting into homesteading now, I think, especially with everything that's been going on. But a lot of the people you're seeing, or a lot of things that are happening, are people in their late 40s or their 50s. And we're going to be talking this whole week on, we just did something on Tuesday about homesteading while you're aging, and I think this is going to be the complete opposite, and it's going to be really nice to hear both perspectives. I know that there's people I personally know that I was excited, they're in the groups and they're 18 years old and they're ready to jump in, and so they're really going to have a leg up here. But having children can bring challenges, but also has huge benefits. And so Hannah is with us today. Hannah Diane. We will be posting all of her blog info and everything at the end. But she is going to be packing us full of her story and everything that has to do with little kids. So let's get into it. So today, let's start off with, how old are you, and how old are your kids?
Well, I am 27, and my husband's 31, and I have 3 rambunctious, wild and free boys who are 7, 5, and 2. So, yeah, I had my first at 20, and he wasn't an accident, and they are so much fun.
So, I'm assuming at least the 7-year-old is a pretty good help. Does it make up for the fact that the 2-year-old is probably not as much help?
Yeah, the 7-year-old is definitely a huge help, and I feel like the 7 and 5-year-old are a whole lot more help than most people would think they are, but mainly because we have been homesteading on a smaller scale his whole life. We started homesteading very early on, from the start of our marriage, when I was 19. And so he's grown up just always feeding the chickens and feeding the pigs. And we've always allowed him to help, even when he wasn't really a help. And now that the 2-year-old's kind of coming on, we kind of tend to keep till they're about 18 months, 2 years. And that may seem really young to some and really old to others. The 18 months to 2 years is about when they can go start helping daddy a bit more out, and that can be a hindrance, but it's paying off already with the 5 and 7-year-old being humongous helps for being as little as they are.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned that you've been homesteading even pretty much since the beginning, so I mean, before we dive in, I have to go with my recurring theme of, I was peeking through the questions, and I know that your husband is an electrician. He's got an HVAC business, so I want to know, how did you guys get here? How is your story? Let's hear that.
Okay, so it starts out with, before we even got married, he was working for an electrician, and working towards getting his license. His plan his whole life has always been to be an electrician and own his own company. He's very much a go-getter and an entrepreneur, and that's always been his goals and plans. And so when we got together, I hadn't even started my senior year in high school. He was finishing up college, and he was working for an electrician full-time. And so I can't even remember when he started his HVAC business, before we got married. And then when I was pregnant with my second one, our first 2 are right at 2 years apart, less than 2 years apart. So I had a 14-month-old, and then I was pregnant again, and we went out on a limb. It was totally the Lord's leading, and he started full-time his own company, and it just took off. He's been full-time running his company since then, and it wasn't like, oh, we had all this money in the bank. We did everything people said you don't do. You're supposed to have savings. You're not supposed to have all these young kids and all this stuff, and we jumped. You'll see that's kind of like a reoccurring thing for us. When we know it's time, when we know it's what we're supposed to do, we just jump in. And so we did. But because of that, funds were tight. I was a stay-at-home mom from the beginning, and so I cloth diapered with my first and partly with my second.
How was that? I have to interrupt. How was the cloth diapering? That really... my son's 13, so... it's been years, but I had him extremely young. I was 18 when he was born, and the cloth diapers, I was so nervous to do that. I could not wrap my head around it, and then, it was kind of a double-edged sword because, the only diapers he could use, regularly was Huggies because he was, he had a reaction and stuff to the other ones. And I just, at that time, I was so young, and I just really didn't know. But yeah, so how is cloth diapering?
It is great for your first. Then when you have two in diapers, and just kind of, so it's one of those things, you have these high ambition of all my kids, like I'm spending all this money to buy these cloth diapers, and every kid I have is going to use it, and then your second comes along, and you're like, it's so much easier to have disposable. We did do cloth for the second at home for a lot of the time. I can't even remember. That was a lot's happened since then.
Right.
But my first was totally transparent here. He was super chubby, and so his thick legs helped things not leak out of the diapers.
My son was big too.
So he was completely, fully breastfed. He was actually his first birthday. He still hadn't eaten any real food, and he was like 25 pounds and 18 months clothes. He was massive, and so the cloth diapers worked really well for his body. And then my second one is like a string bean and super thin and has the tiniest little legs, and so things leaked, and that wasn't fun. And we did it at home because it was cheaper for sure. And especially if you hang them out to dry, it helps them last longer. Obviously, cuts down on the energy bills. We live in the deep south, so it's really hot, and we lived in a very old mobile home. And so if you ran the dryer, the house got really hot. So
right.
I utilized a lot of homesteading-like things, which I was always drawn to even as a young child. I've always been an old soul. So I just couldn't wait to cloth diaper my kids and hang the laundry out on the line. And so we, right away had cats and chickens, and we got a pig, and we were the first out of the whole extended family, first people in the family to try pigs. We did not do it how we do it now at all. We did not know what we were doing.
And you're in Alabama too, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
so you're all I think is deep south in Alabama, pigs, just if a dry lot in them probably just reeks.
Well, not really even. I mean, obviously we didn't do it right, but we didn't do it as bad as everyone else. So everybody around here, they tend to put them in pastures. They don't tend to put them in tiny little boxes. But, we were told, don't let them have a lot of space to move around so they can get fat. And, our neighbors were throwing them literal garbage to eat the garbage and everything in the garbage. And we're like, we're not going to do that. But we fed them what we could afford, which was, corn that was not non-GMO, and bread if it was cheap or being given away from the grocery store, even though it was full of GMOs and chemicals and nastiness. And so we didn't do everything right, and if we could go back, we totally would, and would have done a little more research. But we did what we could, where we could, and mainly just to give ourselves better food because we couldn't afford it at that time. Right. So we knew how bad the pork was in the store. Well, this is better than the store, and we can produce it for, not that much money. So,
and what kind of, this kind of rolls, I guess, right into, since we're already on the topic of pigs. So what? And you said, well, we don't do it like we used to, which means you must still have pigs. So what kind of pigs do you have, and what other, you said, oh, I have chickens and this. What do you have now on your homestead? Because I know the kids are helping with chores. I assume not helping with pigs, but what else do we got going on?
So, besides raising our kids, which can be a complete full-time job, we have beef cows. We have actually 2 separate herds of them. We have a whole Angus herd, and then we have kind of a mixed herd over at my folks' house. So we are able to utilize some family land.
Ooh, that's nice.
It's not ideal. We will probably not continue on with some of that forever. We're very home-oriented, and even though it's family land, it's not home. When my husband Luke is there, he's not with the kids. He can bring the boys sometimes, but the setup is not super safe, so the boys can't be hands-on with them. How we have set up everything at our home is that it's, accidents happen, but we have set it up to be safe for the animals and safe for us and safe for our children.
That's huge. And that's a huge thing with homesteading with a young family right there. You're realizing you just can't do some of the things that you're seeing all over because you have the kids.
Yeah, and like around here, everybody does beef cows. Like, that's just the thing. Like, everybody has beef cows. But in their mind, what you do is you throw them out in the pasture. You don't rotationally graze them, so the pasture's crap, and then you fertilize the pasture with chemical fertilizer, and you throw your beef cows, GMO feed and sweet feed and garbage. And so when we come along, we're like, well, that's not how we're going to do it, because it doesn't build the soil. It's not regenerative. It's not taking care, of our land. And it's not good, it's not good for the cows. It's not good for the land. It's not good for our family, because, then you have cows that aren't being handled, and, therefore when you have to go transport them, they're wild. They're not used to people. And that's just not safe for anybody. So, but yeah, so we have beef cattle. We had a herd of Dexters. They just did not fly for us.
That's the ones I want.
Yeah, we were super excited, and then they just have not been a thing. So they've been good eating. We still have some steers growing out from our mamas, but we're kind of transitioning out of them. But they are the reason we moved them to our personal homestead on our property last year, and that is what brought us into having a dairy cow, which was always kind of my dream. And my husband literally was just like, you're crazy. Like, nobody does that. You're insane. Do you know how much work that is? Do you know how ornery they are? Like, you're crazy. He never actually said that, but he's told me later he thought that every time I brought it up. So he would just be like, yeah, maybe one day.
He was hoping you weren't going to do it.
Yes, pretty much with the never going to happen look on his face. So we have dairy cows on our property, and then you asked about the pigs. We have Tamworth pigs, so that's what we went with, the bacon breed.
I've only heard of those once, like ever. Like, this guy lives. I don't know.
Which one are those?
Well, I don't know how to explain those ones, I guess, but and actually, what I'll do here while we're even on this podcast is I'm going to go ahead and pull up pictures, and hopefully you'll have some pictures, and we will have those on Facebook in the new group, Homestead Happenings with VB. Be sure you join that group. That's going to be where the giveaways are and all the links to everyone. But we will get all these posted up. But there's a neighbor, I don't know, maybe 25 minutes, and he said that he's got those. And I was like, Huh, I've never heard of that. And then I read your questions, and I was like, weird.
Yeah, we love them. They are sweet. They're very large. Well, I've seen larger, but they're very big pigs. They're very long. They're extremely long.
Wow.
But they've done really well with us. We don't rotationally graze them yet. We're trying to figure out how to get them to do that safely. And how our land is laid out, it's very spread out. And so where they are now, to get them to where we could utilize them turning the soil and working everything in and fertilizing, we're like, how are we going to get them over there? So we're still kind of working on that. But we do know there are a lot of, there's a good bit of people down here with Tamworths. So
Really?
we love them. We think they're super cute,
They
too.
look like my red wattles without wattles. They look, the red wattles have a little bit of, I don't want to say, it's like kind of like a humpback shape, like that U.
Yeah.
And the Tamworth looks really straight, but but the color and everything, that's pretty cool.
They do look really long.
Yeah, and that's interesting, really interesting. You mentioned that your land is really spread out, and you got to have everything kind of safe and stuff. Especially with the kids, are you walking that, or do you have like a UTV?
No, we have nothing like that. My husband does have his Jeep he got when he was younger, but we don't. We've used it a few times to go back to the back, like when I first had our 2-year-old, and he was working on clearing the back part of the land. He would take me out on that, but no, we just walk it. We have about 20 acres, and it's separated in multiple different little pastures. So we just walk it. We get our exercise. We enjoy it.
Yeah, so. I noticed that a lot of people, even with at 2 years old, they're kind of baby wearing still when they have those long walks, or more people are switching over to the UTVs. And so I just wondered, because I know some people listening, they're not going to have the resources to have all of these gadgets, we'll call them.
We don't. That's not where our funds are able to go at this point. And my 2-year-old actually really hated baby wearing by me. He allowed Luke, my husband, to baby wear him. So Luke did that with some things when he was younger, but we just really, from a really young age, just teach them safety and, depending on what's going on, where to stand, to stay there, because it is important. Now, that third kid is kind of like a loose cannon, so that's where the 7-year-old comes into play and can help kind of physically keep him from the harm if there has to be that, if Luke and I are in the midst of something major. But, my boys are very active. They're out playing all the time. They're involved in every evening chore, regardless of the weather.
And so you'd say that the children do not affect your daily animal care schedule. They're, at this point, they've been doing it for so long, and you've had this routine that it's just everybody helps, everybody does.
Uh-huh. Yep, everybody has their thing. Our youngest, our 2-year-old, has just in the past 6 months or so started going out and doing that. But until we had dairy cows, I wasn't as involved with the outside chores of the homestead. I did the garden, but I did the men handled the feeding and kind of the care of the animals, unless there had to be a second adult set of hands kind of thing.
Oh.
So I would keep the baby in with me, but then, he hit right around 2 with my oldest. He was about 18 months, and we taught him how to toddle around and feed the chickens, and he could throw the pig feed over the edge of the fence, with me right there. And so with our first, it did look different, because with our first, we were able to be one-on-one with him, teaching him, really pouring into teaching him. And the second, the 2-year-old, it's more like, okay, watch Big Brothers and see how they do it, or stay right with mommy or daddy, and we let him hold a bucket or make him feel like he's helping, but he's really not. He's more of a hindrance at this point. But if they don't do that, they're not ever going to be a help. So, but no, they don't really. I mean, we had our first son. I miscarried my first baby, but I had my son. We were married like less than 2 years when we had him, like a year and a couple months, year and a half, and so he just fit. We just fit our schedule. Kind of, we just made it work where he fit into our schedule and we fit into his, and so it just always flowed really well. Partly because they are young, so they can adapt really well to it. It's not like we're trying to add them into this homestead thing at 8, 10, and 12.
Which we did things. Growing up was different. My mom and stuff, that was fine. Always canned food. Garden was a thing. In the country, that's fine. But my son specifically, his father does none of it. Totally thinks that it's just nonsense. So he's living two very different lives, half the time and half the time. And, so we were doing things urban, so he's gardened and all that stuff. But when we got our property, he was obviously older, so he knew what was going on and all the differences and stuff. So for him, it was a very different journey as far as, I wouldn't say he loves chores. He loves the animals and he loves to do some chores. You can tell what animals are his favorites.
Right.
And the ones that he could seriously do without, or, he'll volunteer to do a lot of things. He likes to hand feed the ducks, of course. Who doesn't like to just sit and watch the chickens,
Exactly.
baby goats, things like that, but when we have to take time away because we have to do like things with the pigs or whatever, he'll eat bacon, but he's not a fan of the pigs, squealing and this and that kind of nonsense. He likes some of the rabbits. The lion heads that are, we've been talking about starting for some show or things like that, and he likes that, but,
Right.
And he likes the Flemish Giants. He could do without the New Zealands.
Yeah.
So it is a thing, he is only 13, so he just, like, July turned 13, so he's at that age where, he's not really sure what interests him fully.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So we know, we've talked to him, but we have the ability to talk to him and talk about goals and, what maybe he'd want to do, what we want to do. Of course, he can understand all those things. You can have a full conversation. So,
So I guess on that topic, what are some of the homestead goals that you guys have in mind?
because your kids are little, so they're not, it's you creating those, without their input, really.
Yeah, for us, what's kind of funny is just due to being in this at such a young age, our oldest has his own business, farming, homesteading venture already kind of planned out, and so we have ours. Our like overarching theme is the reason we got into homesteading is to provide and produce. For us, the majority, we would love like everything but like our grains. We just aren't going to grow grains probably, but like most everything we eat, we want to produce ourselves. And then expanding from that, when people found out, people who don't have the ability to do this, they found out we're doing this. They're like, oh, hey, you could do that for us. And so it's kind of expanded to feeding, helping, providing this for our community. And then as we've kind of grown and researched in that, we are really moving towards, sustainable. I've always been very big in sustainable practices in my home, in my homemaking, and so that's really bubbled out into the homestead. And my husband has finally really caught that vision and started reading a lot of Joel Salatin and getting into that whole movement of regenerative farming. And so my husband just really has that passion too. And so that is like our undercurrent passion, is to, utilize the land in the best way while building it up, because we got craft land. We got the local dump. It was not a dump, but people treated it that way. It is ridiculous how terrible this land was. And so we're having to build it back. But then our son, so we got our pigs last fall and brought our Dexters on the property in December. We got our first milk cow heifer, or Guernsey, in January 1st. And then our dairy, business, our dairy venture has exploded from March. We got our first cow in milk, and it has now we'll have 5 as of next week.
So yeah, I mean, a little bit rapid.
Yeah, very rapid. We like to say we really are insane. We really are.
How much milk is that?
Currently, we're milking to our third cow that we are milking. She has a story. She's 7. She just traveled 6 hours to get to our farm last week. She was kind of middle of her pregnancy, and she decided that, hey, I'm kind of getting older. That trip was really hard. You just pulled me from my calf. I think I'm going to dry up. So she's giving us like a quart a day. We're not really counting her. She takes us all like 5 minutes. But so we are milking her, and she's a sweetheart, and we love her. But so right now we only have 2 that we're milking, and we get about 8 gallons a day. But then we have our Guernsey that we got in January. She is due today with her calf. So we're on baby watch with that. So who knows?
I will be trying to watch. Remind me, you have a Facebook?
Yes.
I will be peeking because I love to keep up with calves.
Yes. And she's a beautiful, beautiful cow. And so we're very heifer. So we're very excited to see what her baby looks like. We're hoping for a heifer.
Do you have pictures of your cows? And
yes, we have lots of pictures of our cows. Yesterday I posted about our new girl, and then kind of spoiler alert, it's not on Facebook. It hasn't happened. We are getting another Jersey. We've officially gotten, we're getting her, but we haven't brought her to the farm till next week. So that's not on Facebook yet, but we are getting one that is in milk.
How exciting.
So you're saying cows are addicting?
Cows? Okay, so chicken math works with cows.
It sounds like it.
I feel like the cost difference, though,
The cost, yes, that's a big thing. You can't add 55 chickens. I mean, you can add 55 chickens at a time. You can't really do that with cows.
Yeah, chicken math is real over here, okay? It is real. And we've had people putting deposits down on their spring orders. We do have a feature on the Murray McMurray hatchery site, so people do find us there. And they are, they're just amazing, sweet people. And the gal that runs their social media is top notch. Love her. Yeah. And hopefully we'll be having some things and doing some work with them in the podcast. So stay tuned for that. But hopefully, but we've got people putting down deposits and stuff for their spring orders. And so we are just hatching fools here, basically. I've got the incubator loaded up again. We have chicks arriving from Murray McMurray in next week. Holy guacamole. Next week.
It seems like all summer it's been about once or twice a week. My husband will call because he, works full time, and he'll call and be like, "Oh, hey, I forgot. There's 100 chicks at the post office right now. Can you go get them for me?" And all the time, and never at a convenient time, obviously.
Why would it be at a convenient time?
It's insane. We have guineas. We have The ducks are a big thing, and we have so many chickens, so many broilers, so many layers, so many.
I don't think we're doing guineas. I don't. We were talking about it, but the more and more we think about it, the turkeys do like an excellent job, and then we have so many chickens. I don't think I want to listen to the guineas.
Yeah, I don't mind them. There are alarm system with people coming and going for their pet food milk. The dogs are really good at keeping animal predators away, but not so much people. And so there have been people on my porch eating pet food milk, and the only reason I knew they were there is because the guineas went off for me. So they're kind of our alarm system.
That makes sense. Our dogs are equal opportunity. If you are human or predator or whatever, they will not remain silent. And the ducks are actually at the front, and man, they will go off at anything.
Oh yes, they're loud too. I hate the ducks every milking because they come in when it needs to be quiet and calm for the queens of the farm. It just has to be very calm and peaceful for them, so they have a good letdown. And then in come your ducks in a row, quacking their heads off every milking. They're like, go away, we don't like you.
I know. Ducks have zero personal space. They don't care at all.
They'll sneak up. I like to I like to sneak up on them and put a bucket on them, and it's the funniest thing because then they'll waddle around with this bucket on them like they don't even notice. It's so funny.
So many people I've seen putting on little tiny raincoats, and I just think that's so funny. They put little tiny raincoats, and you said you're milking. Now we know you've got tons of poultry. You've got pigs. You got all this thing. You must be homeschooling.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We are very home oriented. I am a homemaking, home birthing, homeschooling, homesteading mama. So, I couldn't do all this without keeping my schooling. Well, I mean, I guess it'd probably be easier if I wasn't schooling my kids too. But I was homeschooled. My husband was homeschooled. We've been homeschooled all the way through. So it was just like a no-brainer.
That's super cool. That's super unique.
Yep. So we're we love it most of the time. Our kids love it most of the time. But I mean, I was 19 years old and pregnant and reading Charlotte Mason and just learning how to homeschool. So that's just always been our goal. So
you're homeschooling, and so I assume that means you have extra hands for my next question, which would be, let's talk about the garden.
Yes, and that goes into what you were asking about, our homestead goals. That is our son's his own idea. He's really into making money because, we don't just buy things for them. And so they're like, oh, hey, we have to work to make money. So he's come up with his own plan to have his own part of the garden, which they've always kind of wanted, and we've just never let them do. But he wants to do it himself. They will do chores to buy their own seeds, and I've told them I will not weed it. I will not water it. That's going to be your deal. But they will grow it. They will sell their vegetables on our front porch where people pick up and make their money. And then they plan to buy their own sow and raise piglets, and that's what they're going to do. And so that's our oldest son. Our second son is planning to do sheep. He's very interested in being a shepherd. So
that's awesome.
They have their own goals and they're working towards them, and we really encourage that too, because we would love for them to have a leg up. You always want to be helping and helping that next generation kind of step up and get started ahead of where you did. So
absolutely. And when they need to, when you're talking about seeds, everybody don't forget that Mary's Heirloom Seeds has all of your seed needs at affordable prices. She's amazing. Small business. She is a sponsor of this podcast, and she does a ton of philanthropy. She does donate a lot of seeds, and especially to some projects just like this. So maybe you guys will be receiving some seeds in the mail, and we're going to pretend like you didn't know where they came from. So, what do you think, dear? I mean, we've just talked. Now we have a 5-year-old that wants to be a shepherd, and we still have not. Are you ready to be a shepherd?
Not really. I mean, we're gonna do sheep because you want to do sheep. And
he says this. I feel like deep down in his soul, this man wants to be a shepherd. I know it.
I don't, but I really like my goats. I love my goats.
Well, his goats love him. One goat, she will literally leap from the pen, not to get into anything, not to bother, not to be a pest, just to see him, and then she'll put herself back.
She just wants pets and to follow me around for a little bit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, she also likes to torment the dog.
We don't like our goats.
What kind of goats do you have?
Oh, I don't even know. My husband would know. I don't.
So you really don't like the goats?
I really don't like the goats. That was the one thing. We will not do goats. When we got married, we both came from dairy goat herds, and we don't like the smell. We don't like them. We don't like milking goats. We don't like goats. We don't like goats. Our land was very overgrown, and so they have a purpose. And so when my husband started talking about goats, and I looked at him and I said, they will not be my goats. When they are out, because I will not get them put back. They are not my goats. And our neighbors have called or texted me and said, hey, you have a goat out. And I'm like, actually, no. Luke Mooney has a goat out. I don't have a goat out. I don't have goats.
That's what I'm going to start telling you about Merida.
I do put her back.
Oh, Merida is a brat sometimes, but not my bucklings. Oh, those precious, they can't do any wrong. Just love those to death. And I want to do, the sheep that I want to do are the baby dolls. You're going to say you don't want to shepherd a little tiny smiling chubby face?
I mean, I will, but I don't know.
So the truth comes out. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first. The truth is out.
It'll be different when we're not talking about it and we have them. We'll see.
Oh, yeah. It'll be me. It'll be Victoria, the shepherdess, or whatever. Is that what it's called? I don't even know. So, on that note, there's a 5-year-old shepherd. I am not. We'll see what happens. Back to the garden that I can do. I hate to say it, dear, but you're not a good garden hand.
I know. Never said I was.
I feel like this 7-year-old is going to one up you. Kids are amazing.
Probably. All things serious, I don't mind doing anything homesteading except for the garden. I just absolutely cannot get into it.
I'm pretty sure, but you know what he does like to do? He will surely want dinner. That's what he wants. He wants to eat dinner. I feel like the little red hen. That's what it is. I'm out there tediously sowing seeds and all this, and then here we are, alas.
Who built the foundation for the garden for you?
Okay, touche, dear.
Yes.
Touche.
That's my part. You do the garden part. I build, you garden.
I will say you do like your peppers.
I do like.
You're a man that likes peppers.
I do tend to the peppers, but that's it.
Well, now I gotta know, what are the 7, 5, and 2-year-olds showing us up on in the garden?
Well, they are terrible at weeding. Absolutely horrendous at weeding.
Oh, relatable for you, dear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one job that they're like, oh, we can pull the weeds. I'm like, yeah, no, you can't. No, you won't. Sorry, don't touch anything green at all. So the 2-year-old pretty much is not allowed in my garden.
Fair.
At all.
Fair.
He's just he has his dump truck and his little digger and a dirt patch right outside of the garden. I can see him. He can see me. The dog is usually standing guard over him, and the 5-year-old is, the 5 or 7-year-old, depending on what we're doing in the garden, is standing guard over the garden gate, so the 2-year-old can't get in. So 2-year-old's not allowed in the garden. When he does, the whole time it's, don't do that, don't touch that, don't pull that, stop pulling that.
Yes.
But
so all the moms listening, you're not alone.
No. So inevitably they will pull up that like absolute amazing performer of a tomato plant, or like that best looking pepper you've got growing that's finally giving, and then they're like pulling it off and going, oh look, and it's like, no, it wasn't okay, whatever, just eat it, enjoy it, it's not right.
Yep.
So but actually that's where my 5-year-old is a very consistent helper, and he really loves the garden. He's very he has a good stick-to-itness with the garden. So he's my harvester. He's my helper with the harvest. My oldest is kind of like, he likes the big, important, like exciting, quick jobs. Like, let's build a barn. He's all about that. Like, let's go harvest for 2 hours. And he's not about that. So
I appreciate the fact that you are like, you started young, and so you're just, here's all of your opportunities, kids, and then you let them take the lead. Yes. And that's a beautiful thing.
It's very important in having kids in the homestead, is that at the end of the day, they are more important than the homestead. And now you're homesteading for a reason, and for whatever reason you're homesteading, it is a very important reason, and usually it's most often for the benefit of your family and your kids. But if your kids are completely bitter and hate it the whole entire time because they feel like they're just free farm hands, they're not going to want to continue it. And then what are you building this homestead for, So I have to do things I don't want to do. My husband has to do things he doesn't want to do. I'm sorry, 7-year-old, you have to do some things you don't want to do. But, hey, we have this chore, or this part, and this part, Are you going to haul the water for me, or are you going to help harvest? And he's all about, like, here, let me show you my muscles. And so he hauls water till the cows come home, and my 5-year-old is in the garden with me, picking everything and just tediously going through every plant and picking what's ripe and not picking what's not ripe, and he just is a really good helper with that. So, but my 7-year-old is really good at hauling water. He really is, and that is a hard job. Like, I don't want that job. I don't like that job.
Yeah, so, we're off grid with no running water and no hoses. Everything is hauled with 5-gallon buckets and has been for 2 years.
Yeah.
So, and I say 2 years because that's when we were here full time, all the time, not bouncing back and forth to the house. And so, I mean, need water to cook, hauling water. Need water to take a shower, hauling water. Like, it is tedious. So props to him, because our bicep game is strong.
Oh, he has got the largest kid muscles I have ever seen. So he puts me to shame for sure. I enjoy hoeing the garden. I really do. That's, if it's not 2,000 degrees outside, which means I'm usually doing it at like right after milking at 6 a.m. We all kind of have that thing that we like or are good at in the garden. I do like hoeing the garden, and my middle son likes harvesting the garden, and I mean, I have to help him with that. But in a few years, that will totally be his thing. And my son, my oldest, likes to, haul water. So we all kind of work well, and my husband doesn't like doing anything in the garden except, tilling it at the very beginning. And then he's like, yeah, that's good. If it's kind of overrun because we've had a busy school week or whatever, he's like, we've got to go get in the garden. And then he buckles down and helps that, 3 times in the summer. So
you can't say that. Now he knows that, now he's aware that there's other men in the world not gardening. You see what you've set me up into.
But I already knew that, so.
No. I was trying to trick you, dear.
I'm sorry. I do not like the garden.
One day you're going to love it.
Never going to like it.
Yeah, say it with me. Permaculture is the way.
Permaculture is your way.
Well, I'm gonna wear him down. Everybody listening, by the end of this podcast series, which we have tons coming up, the man will be worn down, and he will be in the garden. Probably not.
Probably not.
He'll probably be laying down in the garden, just wishing for it to end. But you'll be in it. I think. Well, you do want to help me build the garden fence.
Yeah, but that's infrastructure. So
you're more of a construction
yes.
guy, which you did. You led me in here. Great, dear. Because you did electrical construction.
Yes.
And, you loved that. You would have been a journeyman by now, but then you came into our business.
Took a different path.
Yes, but that leads us right into, she's mentioned multiple times that her husband has his own business, that he's working outside the home. So I know everybody's thinking, is the goal for him to come home? And if so, is that possibly in 2023? Or another question would be, do you have homestead businesses that you're running, or are you also working on the side?
Well, the goal is for him to be home more. He does still love the work that he does, and he has employees. He has a whole other crew. His younger brother works for him full time. He has a couple guys working full time, and then a part-time worker that helps him on some days, and that has really helped our homestead. Is the days he doesn't have his helper, he can kind of pop in and out. That's kind of more his. We've really worked towards his paperwork day, owning it and running your own company. There's a lot of paperwork no one else can do for you.
Yes,
so
I've owned my own cleaning business. I'm for years and years and years now, and I'm a control freak. So kudos to him for even having another crew.
It's been hard for he goes and works. Before the dairy cows, it'd be 12-hour days. Come home and take care of, we always laugh and say, we thought the homestead was big till the dairy cows. And then we're like, the dairy cows really pushed us over the edge with lots of time involved. But, he'd put in all these hours and then come home, eat supper, feed the animals, eat supper, put the kids to bed, and then have to crank out hours of paperwork. And so he has a whole crew, 2 guys that work full time that go out, and he trusts them. They've been working for him for years. So they can stay steady working, and then the days he has a helper, he's out working. Some days when he doesn't have a helper, he's out working full-time too. But those days he comes home and does some more paperwork, and then can, do a little bit more work here and there on the homestead. Maybe the cows need a roll of hay, or, try to get another step done on the new chicken coop, or whatever it may be. He's kind of home a little bit more. And it was last fall that actually kind of gave him that inspiration of hey, I think I want to be home. He got hand, foot, and mouth. It was the craziest thing.
Oh, yeah.
Two of our sons, one had 2 spots on his foot, the other puked once and kind of ran a fever. My 7-year-old was fine. I was fine. He got hit so bad to where he literally sat in a chair and did nothing. And this is my extremely high energy. He can be sick as a dog, and he just plows through it. And he's in the chair, not even able to turn pages of his book because his hands hurt so bad.
Yeah, hand, foot, and mouth is just, I remember it, man. And when it went through the daycares, just everybody was dreading it. We're like, please don't let it be me.
Yeah, so he got that. He was home for a week and a half. And as much chaos as it was, because, Daddy's never home, and we do homeschool, and we do homestead, and so we have our rhythms, we have our routines, we do what we do. And what seemed like super chaos for me, because him being there really upset our routine, he was like, this is where I need to be. Having an electrical company is great, and it's been my goal my whole life, but if my kids don't have a passion for this, if my kids don't want to do this, this is not something easily... you have to have a passion for or enjoy that work to really excel in it. Homesteading, like we've talked about, you can have there's so many avenues in homesteading that you can thrive and have totally different strengths or, loves. And homesteading, our boys are very different, and they all want to homestead. Their plan is always farming of some kind, but they have their own little paths in that they like. So it hit him last fall where it was this is where I really need to pour into, I can pour into my family and pour into my boys and pour into my kids at home and still be doing something productive, and growing a business or growing something that could support us. And in the beginning, it wasn't financially, it was very independent, very sustainable. Like, we're going to support ourselves, so we don't need a lot of income to live.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even, potentially just have that crew work and him pop in and keep an eye, make sure they're doing what's right. But, he does the paperwork and he pretty much farms full time. Like, we don't really know where that's headed. We don't know what we really want in that, and that's okay. Like, that's really okay to not know and to be just seeing where everything leads, because we've had so many things happen that we think back on where we were a year ago. It's like dairy cows were not on the radar, and here we are milking, like, as of next week, 4 every day, twice a day, and that was not on our radar at all, and here we are, like, full-blown small-scale dairy. So
yes, rapidly.
Yes, very rapidly. We got our first one in milk in March. A few people, mainly family, found out you can't have a herd share in Alabama. You can't sell milk for human consumption in Alabama, so it's pet food. So we had family that, had pets that wanted milk. And so, it started with that, and it just kind of grew. And so in May, we got our second one, and there for like 2 weeks we were drowning in milk, and we're like, we made a mistake, this is not what. And then it just really exploded to where we're like, we have a waiting list, like, this is insane. So
yeah, we have, the goats are kind of that, but we do hope to have a Dexter cow pair so that we can do the milk as well. I think because we have 7 goats. We have 5 does and 2 bucks. But I think for the goats, their milk is easy for me because I have a dairy quote-unquote intolerance. Yes.
So many people have that, imagine.
Yeah. So, I still eat it. So, but I think the more so for that is like a lot of the skin issues. And so actually, it's the soaps and lotions that we do use it personally.
Right.
And we would like to get that side of things even more, and to have the goat's milk on hand, because it is one of the things that is a kind of a universal thing, especially like when we have piglets or we're growing out meat birds or baby animals of something else, and so that's a thing. But
that was the selling point for my husband was, hey, if we don't drink it all, it goes back to the independent, sustainable homestead of like, hey, we can feed our family and feed the other animals, so bring down the feed costs. It's super good for them. It's technically cheap, because we're working towards fully grass-fed, but we're, that's pretty low input. And so it's like, okay, this is a no-brainer. And then we're like, we're selling every drop of milk we're pumping out of them. What are we going to do? So actually in January, before we got our milk cow and it all kind of worked out, we rescued a Holstein bottle baby. And she almost died on us so many times. But nobody, who wants thin Holstein milk? Come on, like when you got thick, creamy Jersey or Guernsey milk.
Yeah.
So we're raising her to be our feed, our technical, like legit pet milk cow. So we'll milk her and she can help grow, the pigs and help feed the chickens. And so that's kind of, she's our lawnmower. We rotationally graze her. So she mows our yard, and everybody loves to pet her when they come. And she's a cutie, and in a year and a half, she'll be our milk cow for all the other animals. So
yeah, we hope that since we want to do like the butter and cottage cheese and buttermilk and hard cheeses, which you can do hard cheeses with goat's milk, and we will. But we think the Dexters would have a little lower, they would have a lower output. So We think it'll give us, the best of both worlds. And here in Missouri, we are able to sell for human consumption.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Missouri is very loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
On most of our laws and regulations. So, go Missouri.
Yeah, that's awesome, because you would think everyone's like, surely in Alabama, like, everything's legal. And it's like, no, actually, my first two sons were not, you couldn't home birth legally. Let's just say that.
Interesting.
I could birth my baby unassisted legally, but I couldn't have a midwife there. So, that's just, it's so odd, because it's, it's always, it comes back to the money. It always goes back to the control and the money. And so,
yeah.
We honestly, it works for us that it's for pet food. We have a sign, it's not for human consumption. And the thing is, we have high standards for our family and our family's health. And so people trust us because they know we only feed our family what's best. And so they can trust our standards, and we'll show people. We've had people watch us. We do everything very clean. And so they trust us regardless if, the local people say it's clean or healthy or okay, so.
Right. And so the milk, the milk and the dairy and all that stuff, that seems to be like, it's like a forerunner there, and I think a dairy animal is so important to any homestead, whether you want to do sheep, goats, cows, they're just so important. But are you milking by hand, or do you have a machine? And I know that you're selling also like eggs, meat. I believe I saw that you're doing sourdough. So a lot of these things, and doing classes and all these things. What part of these, since I know the boys are wanting to do their own thing, but are they gathering eggs? Are they doing this? It's pretty much a family affair then?
Yes, it is. They gather eggs. They actually, so going back what I said about, letting them do what they love and having a passion for it, and not really frustrating them with the homestead, is they don't get a lot of time with Daddy, even though Daddy's home a little bit more, because they're doing chores. And, that's, the kids like it, but that's not fun,
Right.
So, oldest was kind of starting to, act out a little bit, obvious for some attention, and we milk twice a day. We milk by machine. We started by hand. Number one, it's cleaner by machine. There's less debris in there, and we quickly realized if we're going to milk more than one cow with a full-time job for my husband, homeschooling for me, with little kids, it's like we have to get in and get out. So
yeah, we did hand milking on a goat. Hand milking is like not my favorite thing. I absolutely will be doing by machine starting in the spring when we're doing kidding season. I am like so done. I hand milked a cow before, and I really enjoyed that. Hand milked the goat, specifically this goat. I mean, it was very difficult. I had multiple kicks to the head. I was about done. So, but you're already mentioning about your 7-year-old and stuff. So I'm going to hit this question for you so you can finish your thought. What challenges do you face with small children? Because so far it's been, they're very interested, they're very excited, but at the end of the day, they're still kids. So your 7-year-old was kind of showing a little bit of that. So what other challenges, and how are you able to combat that?
Yeah, so it worked out that with my 7-year-old, we're kind of like, sometimes adults can be really dumb sometimes, or really dense, because for like the evening, the early morning milking, they can't help with, because, they're sleeping and one of us is inside with them. But the evening milking, it's like, if they're not handling, and our dairy cows are extremely calm. They're very gentle. They are cows. They're large, but they're very calm. And how we have our barn and milking stanchion set up is they can be back where we keep the hay and not be in and out. They're not out with the cows when they're loose at all. So the older two boys have recently taken over milking with Daddy because one is especially has to be like fed constantly. She would eat her whole entire bucket of alfalfa instantly and not stand for the rest of milking. So we have to like give her a scoop at a time, and it's a good time for me and my husband to chat, and the boys to play. And so we switched it because my oldest was getting frustrated of having to be the eyes on the 2-year-old. We had eyes on them at all times through the side of the barn, but it was, you know, he was the one having to like entertain him or, you know, not let him do anything bad. So we switched it, and he showed interest in, you know, well, why can't all you do is give the cows feed? You know, Daddy handles bringing in and out of the cows, or, you know, putting the machine on. Can't I give the cows their feed? And it hit us, and I'm like, yeah, like, why couldn't they? So that has recently changed, and so I now can actually, we're eating supper at a more decent time because I can be inside with the 2-year-old prepping supper or getting ready to process the milk while they're helping the extra set of hands in the barn for Daddy. So, you know, it's just really like, even though we're doing something, if something's not working well for the kids, that doesn't mean we have to stop what we're doing. That doesn't mean, hey, okay, we're going to quit dairy cows because they seem to be bucking against the dairy cows. It's like, well, why are they bucking against the dairy cows? Because it's taking Daddy's attention away. Well, let them get more involved in a safe way that they can, and it's been so much better. Like, our life with our 7-year-old is so much better now because he feels like he's actually like helping with that aspect of the farm.
That's awesome that you're able to do that, but I think it also goes back to you know, you just being so present, you know, and you know, sometimes it's just so easy to get frustrated. I do.
Yes.
I get so frustrated. And so I think it's just a good reminder to just slow down, think, and remember that, you know, at 7 years old, 5 years old, we weren't processing those exact same thoughts either.
Exactly. Yes. And, you know, he couldn't put into words why he felt the way he did. And so there were moments where me and my husband for weeks now have been going, do we pare down the dairy cow? Like, the herd, this aspect of the homestead, like, we won't ever get rid of the cows because we do it for ourselves first and foremost. But okay, maybe this is too taxing on our family. Maybe this isn't the right thing. But that wasn't the case. We could just pivot a little in what we did. We don't have to be, you know, stagnant in our routines or our rhythms. And so we just pivoted, and it's been night and day difference. And that allows more, you know, more time for me to really focus on training with the 2-year-old. And like you know, you are a loose cannon. You can't be, because he said, even said today, you know, I want to go help milking. I'm a big boy. I go help milking. I'm like, no, you know, you climb on the fences. That's not okay. You can't climb on fences. You can't climb on gates. Big brothers don't do that, you know. And so I feel like even him, he will learn even younger to, hey, like, I have to be safe, and then I can have these responsibilities. Because kids do, you know, if there are rewards for them, even if it's natural rewards, like having all of this milk they can drink because they drink as much milk as they want, you know, that's a reward for them, and they know that they helped bring that to the table, and it's very rewarding for them. So they know the
reward for me.
I know you put it down. Were you that kid that believed chocolate milk came from a brown cow?
Yes.
You shouldn't have admitted that, dear. I mean, now look at you, all these people.
I can drink a half gallon of chocolate milk in 5 minutes.
It actually is fascinating to see how quickly he can get the milk down. It is a sight to see. I am not like a drink milk straight person. It like immediately triggers a gag reflex. Like immediately. I need milk in things and cheese. I'm the kid that would like hide with a block of cheese. Make me miserably sick, and I would still eat the block of cheese, cheesecake, cottage cheese, yogurt. I mean, the list goes on, but plain milk, I'm like, oh, I could never.
I'll just sit and drink the milk out of the fridge. I'll just drink it all.
I know. Well, and I told him, I mean, if it's just him and it's a half gallon of chocolate milk, just drink it. Otherwise, he gets 75 cups out and then leaves. He doesn't rinse them out, heaven forbid. So he gets them, and then I've got 75 cups with a little chocolate milk residue. Just drink it out of the thing. It's only you. Like, you're the only one that does it, because him and my son fight over chocolate milk, so they each have to have their half gallon instead of having 1 gallon. Otherwise, one person gets more milk than the other one. You see why we have to have dairy animals.
Yes, there you go. I mean, yeah, it does come down to, like, hey, if you are a cheese-eating, butter-loving, milk-drinking family, which...
We gotta put that on a t-shirt.
We both grew up with dairy goats, and we both hated goat milk. Hated it. My husband is from a younger age, was more health conscious than I was, and so as a kid, he knew it was good for him, and so he drank it because, like, I'm supposed to, and it's healthy, but not because he enjoyed it. And I'm lactose intolerant. It makes me feel horrible. And so it was like, I didn't drink milk. I ate, like you said, I ate cheese. It made me feel terrible. I ate ice cream. It made me feel terrible. But
my beloved ice cream.
I would not drink milk. And now, and it took a little while, but it's like this raw, thick, how it should taste, amazing milk. It has really helped our family's health. It wasn't like bad, but there's been a marked change in the appetite of one of our children who kind of struggled with his appetite and his weight being a little low. And then it's just like, it has put muscle on my husband and my oldest, like, insane. Like, they're gaining weight and pure muscle, and it's crazy to just watch them just guzzle this milk and literally put on muscles. It's insane.
My husband always jokes, what do you always joke about, that his bones can't break, too dense, and that's why, he can't, even in a pool, he doesn't float or anything, and so he always jokes about that. I mean, I'm telling you, the man can put, like, a disrespectful amount of milk away. It just doesn't make any sense.
You need cow.
Yes, and
literally, you grow strong bones. I mean, if you drink milk your whole life, I've never broken a bone in my entire life. I don't even have to knock on wood. I won't break a bone.
I am brittle. I am a very frail thing. And that's because I had to eat cheese in the closet. That's why. Well, I think that your story is fascinating. I think your kids sound amazing. And so then I got to know, are you at your permanent homestead? Because you said 20 acres. We got 5 cows now. So, I mean, that might grow. So are we thinking the kids might be able to put some houses on land with you?
Oh, I don't know. We're not that, like, compound like. He actually grew up like that on family land. My husband did. And so he grew up with his grandma next door, his uncle on the other side, and now his sister lives where his grandma used to, and his folks still live there, and his uncle still lives there. And he talked, him and his younger brother even talked about, like, building a house, and that's just not really our thing. I think it comes with that homesteading, like, independent. We would love our children to live close, and I think having kids young, you're kind of like, you have that mindset of, like, I'm raising them to be adults, like, they're not forever going to be my baby in my home kind of thing. And so it's like, yeah, spread your wings, but please don't spread them too far away, but, like, not in my backyard either. So,
right. I'm different. I'm like, well, my mom is nearby, I suppose. My mom's 4 hours.
Oh, see,
if I'm driving normally.
I'm 5 minutes from mine, and we're 15 minutes from his.
See, and that would be ideal, but my son, he knows that, he can come here, but we have a very small piece of land. We really, 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 really significantly wish that we had about 4 to 5 times more land than we have, but it is what it is right now. But you know, we would never be able to. The goats afford us the ability to, if we wanted to do what you were doing, you know, and selling the milk and things like that, which we will. But the goats are the only things that can make that possible. We wouldn't be able to have enough cows because we only have 5 acres.
Right.
So for us, you know, pigs, sheep, things like that. Now that's why the Dexters are so important.
Exactly.
We did look into the mini Highlands because, let's be serious, but they are like 3 times more expensive than the Dexters and not as readily available. So realistically, probably not going to happen. But just so you know, if you show up at home with a trailer full of mini Highlands, I will not be upset.
Noted.
Then you don't have to garden.
I don't have to
we're
now.
the most beautiful things on the face of the planet. Let's just be real.
Well, I think that, you know, I was reading your thing earlier that, you know, whenever we do these interviews, it's so amazing because we get to talk to everybody in advance. We get to see everybody's stuff. I write down like, oh man, I really want to know more about this. You know, last week, if you missed it, we did strawberry farming with Kimberly Ann, and we got to learn about her history in pageants. You know, now we're learning about, you know, you and your husband, you were homeschooled and you were so young, and you started homesteading super young, which is just so amazing to have this, you know, steadfast feeling so early. And we learned from the first episode with Hannah Bailey about how they just like bought a farm with the animals. Like everybody, I don't know if you were able to listen to that, if you haven't listened to it.
I was not going to lie, I was so jealous. That was like my dream, was to get an Amish farmhouse and all this land and all these animals. Actually, one of my good friends just did that, and it's like, you know, we might have started earlier, but I'm like, oh, but she got the farmhouse. She got the Amish farmhouse. I really wanted that.
And the established animals and everything there ready to go.
I know. Well, she was telling me about her peacock, you know, and she was like, oh yeah, he hangs out. I just thought, wow, that's amazing. We bought raw land. You know, you said you bought, you know, land that you had to flip over. And so everything that we're building is so amazing, but everybody's stories still, even up to this point, have just been phenomenal. I think, you know, as the boys grow, you guys are you're on the right path. And, you know, I would have said, do you wish you started, you know, sooner? But, I mean, you started, you know, so early and everything went great. And I would just say maybe just a couple more things I really want to know here is, and I'll ask them both to you at the same time, is how, not chores, not any of those, but how do you manage these big projects like fencing paddocks or building barns or anything like that with the kids? And then tied into that, what tips can you give other young families that right now, I know they're overwhelmed, the world's going crazy, they're just getting to their land, they've got all of these dreams, and they just feel like they're drowning?
Yeah, so, I mean, sometimes you just feel that way.
So it's normal.
Yes, very normal, very normal. The big projects, like you said, you know, our land has been a little bite-sized, like clearing this, building this, doing this. We had actually a situation with a neighbor who was not in her right mind. For the safety of our animals and the safety of our family, we actually had to throw up our complete perimeter fence in a very short amount of time due to the lack of law enforcement dealing with the situation and just the safety. I mean, I felt very unsafe. My children felt very unsafe. When you have a neighbor coming on your property, you know, waving guns is not a fun situation to work through. So actually the big fence, the big perimeter fence that was going to take like all this time got thrown up. My husband is very, very handy, and so it's very secure. It's very, very strong, very sturdy. But he pretty much just cranked that out himself because of the situation that was going on. So that was kind of like the only big project we did that he just, it was like, me and the kids are inside, we're doing our thing, we're doing our life in the safety of like right in our backyard, and you're going to make us safe so this crazy person stays away from us.
That is just such a shame. You have dreams, you have plans, and then, I'm telling you, neighbors can make or break.
We have some of the best neighbors. We are so thankful for our neighbors. This one was just off her rocker, and I mean, she was legit off her rocker. She did leave, but like even while he was putting up the fence there, where it backed up at the home where she was staying, and super far away from our house. I'm talking, she should have never shown up on our property. She like on our property, as in like in our backyard, right at my house.
Weird.
As he's putting up the fence, she's literally screaming at him that like she's going to cut the fence and the fence isn't going to stop me. Like complete psychopath. So he put that one up real fast, real good, real fast, because we're keeping this crazy person out. So all of that he did himself, just cranked that sucker out real fast. But building barns, building different things. We've actually lived in mobile homes that we've added onto. So building even projects on our home to make like the dairy. Like now we have a milker and milk cans and lots of jars, and so we've added on to our new home for that. And so the boys actually, we all just like chores, we all pitch in. We all have our jobs. Mine tends to be with bigger projects. You know, if a wall's going up, to be that steady hand that's there. Maybe the roof to be there for safety, backup for my husband. But like my job tends to be with that is to make sure their hungry bellies are full, because they're always not full. So cranking out food. Yeah, cranking out food is kind of my job with the big projects. Second set of hands if needed. But for the most part, just our boys are really good about, they want to help. They enjoy those projects. Not the 2-year-old, obviously. He does, but he doesn't get to help. But currently they're building a chicken coop, a mobile chicken coop, and they, the middle son, he helps hold the board steady when my husband like measures them out and does this stuff, and so he keeps them all lined up, and he's very detail oriented, so he's really good at that job. And then our oldest son has his own drill, and so my husband marks where the screws need to go, and so he drills them in. And
I can't even do that. I'm barely just learning how to use a drill. Well, that's for another time. That's for another podcast.
Every project we've had, other fencing, the internal fencing for the dairy cows and for the goats, and all the the different pastures we have, those haven't had to been thrown up so fast. And so the boys are there, carrying fence posts for Daddy, from the Jeep to where Daddy is, or holding something steady, or just being that extra set of hands that really can help get a project done faster.
Oh yeah, big time.
And it's not really, anything huge or big that they're doing, but it's just spending, for us, the homestead is spending time and doing life together. And so we all, I'll go out and take, especially in the summer, it's like, I'll make up a drink or take out a half gallon of, cold milk, or, bread and cheese, and, they eat out there for their snack because they're still hungry, even though I fed them an hour earlier, and it's like, we all have it's just the same as big projects, little projects. It doesn't really matter. We all have our part to play. And that doesn't mean everything goes smoothly. But
yeah, our projects are just a sad case. They're just disastrous. We just, maybe if I actually read or used any of the books that literally give me step-by-step instructions with measurements, but no, I'm winging it, full DIY. Does it work? Yes. Is it pretty? No. No, our things are not overly pretty, and what's funny is
we went to the Homesteaders of America business conference in Tennessee in January of this year. Me and my husband did. And at that time, dairy cows were not on the radar, like selling big time, like maybe doing this as a side thing or a full-time thing was not on our radar. But we were like, we could get some good, it was just the Lord leading for us to go to that. But Joel Salatin, one of the things he said, which I had been saying all along, is I'm like, I live here. Like, I want it to look like, it doesn't have to look gorgeous. We don't have all this money. It can't be, it's a working farm. It's not going to be pretty. But, like, it could look not so janky, right? And that was one thing Joel said was, everything should be functional, but, like, you don't want it to look horrible. And so my husband... From then on, because he just adores Joel, like he's totally got a man crush on Joel.
That's understandable.
He got his book that has the plans in it, and so all of his chicken tractors he built himself were too heavy or too light, or did this or didn't do that, and he's like, I should have just gotten this plan book a long time ago, because he's like, following these instructions really do help, and they actually turn out well. So,
I've got a book. The title's escaping me, but I will put the picture of the book in the post that I will make about Hannah and this whole conversation on the podcast Facebook group. But it has all of the the guide to self-sufficiency. It's got chicken coops and rain catchment and strawberry planters and all these things. And we are just like you said, all of our stuff here is we're just going to say it is. And so our thing, yes, well, and things burn out and things wear out, and we don't have a truck, and so we've got stuff around, and we were just thinking like, okay, we've got to get dump runs done, we've got to get we got to get brush hogs out here, and come spring we'll want to paint everything the same theme, so that everything kind of looks nice. As we just had that too, is we were kind of in a, what is it, like a lull, a rut there. It's just everything was just back to back to back. It's just work this, and we were just all over the place. And so now we're like, okay, let's hone in, winter restart, winter recharge. And so I'm glad to see that we are not alone, we are not crazy, because it came from the man himself, Joel Salatin, that yes, even though you are DIY, you should also have some type of organization of some kind.
One thing that stuck with me, like he literally said, was like, why is that bucket out of place? Like, he's like, it's such a small thing, but like that bucket belongs somewhere, and it just lying there is not where it belongs. And so everything needs to have a spot where it goes, and you put it there.
Don't look at me. Do not look at me. I put the bucket precisely
in the middle of the driveway.
Oh man, I am just gonna be in trouble after this one. Now,
the painting thing, that's high on, like, that's where having two people run a homestead is so good, because like I would be the one that's like, okay, like we have to paint this. I'm like, always going and getting like, oh, I want a barn quilt on our dairy barn, and like let's paint it red, and let's have all, like, you don't even ask about our rain barrel situation currently. It's such a mess. And I'm like, can't we build the stand for them so they're all lined up perfectly straight, and we can paint that wall, and it'd be nice and look good? And my husband's like, the chicken coop for the chicks we currently have that need out of the brooder now is more important than, painting the barn. That's totally not important right now.
Oh, technicalities.
Yes. It's like, well, we'll have a lull this winter, and he gives me that look that's like, excuse me, how many fences are going to have to be fixed? Like, how many this, how many that? Like,
there's always got to be a downer. Always got to be a blockage of dreams. That's you, dear. You're my blockage of dreams.
Oh, I'm a realist.
Yeah. Real downer.
That just means, yes, a dream crusher. Come on.
Well, I've taken up so much of your time. I loved this chat. This was You know, I even got to pick on him. So, is there anything else you want to share with everybody? And where should people go to find you? And I know everybody wants to know where they can find the cows and these boys that are entrepreneurs.
Yes, and hopefully there'll be a little more of that. I'm not on Instagram. I'm off. It's so good for my mental health. I won't even go there. I am on Facebook.
Relatable.
The Mini Family Farms. That there you see a lot of cow stuff, a lot of sourdough stuff, a lot of garden stuff when it's in season, a lot of canning. I'm still canning a lot. So just everything, our daily lives kind of go there. The boys do make an appearance every so often. So that's on Facebook. And then I do have a blog. I've blogged there for years. And since I am off of Instagram, I've had so many people be like, you really need to pick this back up. Like, you have so much information. Just because, like you said earlier, there's so many, like the people who are doing sourdough and milk cows, they have like 15-year-olds. And so in your younger mind with, you know, in the throes of young kids, you're like, I can't do that. I don't have a 15-year-old to help. Yeah. So, I mean, it can be done. It totally can be done. It's just hard. But hard doesn't mean bad. So I do blog at wildandfreehomestead.com. And so we'll probably see a whole lot more there now about, you know, homesteading with children and different homesteading things and how we're doing things. And I'd love to have other people, even guests, right? With this podcast, I've kind of been like, oh, I could have other people, you know, who have different things, you know, like the strawberry. I love that strawberry podcast one. It's like, wow, this is really cool.
Well, and I learned so much in that. Like, I literally was probably going to get 6 strawberries, like, my whole life. Like, exactly. So I wasn't even close. But, you know, taking her information, and then I saw a strawberry barrel in that book I was just telling you about, and I was like, okay, I feel confident to do this because now I know what kind of soil to make. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's, for me, it's like, okay, if this person can do it, you know, like, I'm capable of doing that. There's going to be failure along the way. So you said, like, what to tell people. I do really think there are two kind of people, and your confidence there kind of matters. Some people, you know, the big thing is, like, shoot small, aim small, miss small. That's so not me and my husband. Research has a place. You really want to kind of know, like you were saying about the strawberries, kind of know what you should need in general for this animal or this garden, or like canning. Like the canning took me a while to jump feet first in, but once I looked it up and researched it, not to death, but just enough that like I had that knowledge, I just jumped feet first, and I have canned like almost every day the whole summer, because like once I got that knowledge, it's like, okay, I can do this. And so we really encourage people who do want to homestead, especially with young kids, just jump in and do it. Like, have a general idea of what you want to do, or, you know, how to keep that dairy cow alive. If you're going to get into dairy cows, you know, look into milk fever. You don't have that with beef cows. Look into milk fever. You know, if you're going to bottle feed a baby calf and start with that way, look into bloat. That happens real quick. You know, what do you do when they bloat? What do you do? You know, the canning thing, you know, what's acid, what's not. Just have a basic knowledge of what you want to do, but then jump in, because there's never going to be the perfect time or the perfect amount of finances, or your kids will never be at that, like, oh, yes, let's do this. This sounds great. Like,
well, with homesteading, there's going to be no finances.
Exactly. So you just got to jump in and do it. And so that's, you know, have a general knowledge, but just jump in and learn as you go, because that's where you learn the best, is just in the nitty-gritty life. Like, okay, we're not doing that again. That was a really bad idea. Note to self, don't do that again. You know, and then we'll read in one of Joel's books, and it's like, oh, he told us not to do that in the first place. Whoops, we should have read that first. So, you know, basic knowledge is good. Don't get a dairy cow if you've never handled any kind of livestock ever and have no idea what to look for with life-threatening situations, you know. So, for the cow, not you. So,
well, you know where else people can learn?
right here on our podcast.
Exactly. We have over 90 speakers, and we are well in it. So that's another place that you can add to your research. You can just check a doodle that box.
Exactly. Well, it's in your gardening, working in your garden and listening to podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. I've really enjoyed yours, and I'm really excited to hear all your other people you have on.
Yes, I'm extremely excited. We love having you. We love having everybody who's done it so far. And it's going to be crazy. Next week, do you know what's next week, dear?
I don't think so, no.
So, next week, because he doesn't listen to me, he probably thought I was talking about gardening. But next week, we have a very, 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 very dear friend of mine. Fun fact, I have known her since I was 9 turning 10. And she is a licensed, certified, she does EMS, and she is also, so she does that, but she is also a trainer for EMS, and she teaches for college and high school with a private company. So she is coming on to represent her company to be teaching all of us homesteaders how to deal with emergency situations, first aid, what a real first aid situation, what we can have here at home, how we can source those things, not just the little, first aid kit. She asked me if I had first aid kit. I said, yeah, we collected things, here or there. We have this stuff from Walmart. She was like, oh, friend, no. So she's going to be able to kind of be that first step. Hopefully people will write down some tips, and you never know when there's going to be an emergency. A lot of us are all rural, and not everybody has immediate ambulance service. And so if we can have somebody who every single day is in it and dealing with this that can tell us, hey, this is what you do, then I'm excited to have them. We also have healthcare providers that are coming on later in the series that are all holistic health, not traditional medicine, holistic veterinarians. It's gonna be a good thing. We have insurance agents, people on licensed brokers talking about how to even find this land, especially with the rush to just talk about what the market is. I know there's a lot of people who want to buy more land, or there's people just getting their land, or everybody kind of got crazy in this whole land fiasco that just happened, and so they'll kind of talk about that and talk about the interest rates and what people can kind of expect. And we've got people doing homesteading alone. We've got people in the Netherlands, Canada. It's going to be a crazy series. We're happy to have you. We're happy that everybody's listening. Our first giveaway, you got to stay tuned because we are going to announce it in the next few episodes and discuss how you can enter to win that before the holiday season starts. And it is going to be a good one. Of course, the giveaway is going to be all things homesteading. And who knows? Who knows if it's coming from Premier One, Tractor Supply, Mary's Heirloom Seeds, Murray McMurray Hatchery, possibly also Grub Terra. You never know. It's going to be huge. I'm very excited about it. On that note, let's learn.
Let's grow.
And let's go. Thanks for having you, Hannah.
Thank you.